This is Poor Nilsson with Random Art Attack, and today we're going to be texturing a pencil in Substance Painter. So let's go ahead and just dive right in. After you've opened up Substance Painter, you need to go to File and then New, or Control N. Once you're there, go ahead and hit Select a New Mesh. Navigate to where your mesh is at, so here's my pencil low. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a couple maps that I need to bake out. Now, there's a lot more maps you can bake out, but I typically do normal and curve, ambient occlusion, and in this case I have a material ID as well. So I'm going to go ahead and open those and hit OK, and there we go. Now to assign these textures, you go to the texture settings and go to select normal map and go ahead and click normal map, and you can see it automatically assigns it. I don't have a world space normal map, or I do have an ID map, and you'll notice it doesn't show up, and I'll show you how to get there later. I do not put an ambient occlusion here. I actually like to do a fill layer and then put my own ambient occlusion right here as the base color. So I'm going to go ahead and find pencil. And I guess an easier way, that would work. Or you can just go to textures and then you can navigate it this way. Okay, where is it at? There it is. So I could do pencil AO. Change my UV scale to 1, and it will go ahead and automatically add that UV map to it, and then I have a little bit more power to change the strength on and off like this. I like to go to multiply, and there we go. I'm going to go ahead and label this AO. Okay. I also like to put a fill layer with the curvature map. I don't leave it on strong. I'm going to take off, so up here you can see all the different types of channels. You have color, which I'm going to keep. Metal, I'm going to turn off. Roughness, normal, and height. I don't need any of those. Going to go ahead and change the UV scale to 1. And so now my curvature map is actually being applied. It doesn't really show it because it's a lot of gray stuff, but there is a slight curvature to that. If I wanted to increase the strength, I could go to add levels like this. And then I could kind of play around with the levels trying to get the desired result. So it's not really working very well because the curvature map's pretty weak. But you can see there, it is strengthening that. And you can play around with that if you want to. I use that kind of for highlights, and so I might turn that to a blending such as an overlay blend, and then I can decrease the strength of it to what I want. Usually 50 is pretty good. Or you can just do a multiply, and that works good as well. And you can already see that it's actually kind of picking up some of those edges pretty nice. I like that. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into this. I'm first going to go ahead and I'm just going to work the pencil bottom to top. So I'm going to do an eraser. Again, I better change this to curve so we can see that. Okay. I'm going to go and add a fill layer. I like to work in fill layers because I can always go back and change the color or the height or the roughness and metallic nature of this at any time, as opposed to just painting on the textures where I want them. So I'm going to go ahead and try and find a slightly red color for the eraser. And depending on what kind of eraser you use, it's going to be a different color. So right about there is good. I'm going to take off this normal map, and I'm going to take off this height map because I don't need that. Metallic, I like to do just a little bit of metallic in everything, and then about a 0.6 roughness. So this is more or less what it's going to look like. If I took off that curvature, you can see that that's way too bright. So I'm going to do this without the curvature map. Try and get a color like right about there, actually. Okay. I am going to turn that curvature back on and do overlay and see how that looks. Still a little too dark. So I'm going to play around with the levels here until I get about what I want. That's pretty good. And I mean, you don't even need the curvature map. You can take that off completely. It's barely adding anything, as you can see that. So now I have this eraser, but it's being applied to everything. So how I only mask that off, there's several ways. But since I have an ID map, I can right-click this, go to Mask with Color Selection, and then I get to pick a color. So you just pick color right there. And you can pick any of these colors. So if I pick this red, you can see it would only apply it to that part. Now, that's going to be the metal part, so I can just delete that. I'm going to pick the blue eraser. There might be, if you zoom in, some artifacts right there. If you increase the tolerance, it'll kind of smooth that out a little bit. Hardness, playing around with that too. This is actually pretty good transition, so it's not anything I need to worry about. You do need to be careful of the tolerance, because if you have anything too close to that blue, it will apply the material to that as well. So now let's go ahead and do this metal. For this, you can create your own metal, just like I did, just like I created this eraser. Or you can go to this materials right here and find a metal that you think would look right. So I have this rough iron. I'm going to go ahead and try that out. I'm going to slap that right there. And then right click, add mask with color selection, and do the same thing. Just select that area right there. And you can see that actually looks pretty good. As I'm looking at that, that's where the pencil would hit. And so I like what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and name this eraser, just to stay straight on my conventions. And now I'm going to do this pencil texture, this kind of paint look. Again, I could look for some paint to try and get a physically good, physically realistic material. Now, I'm not seeing any paint. If I do painted steel, like such, you can see that doesn't look like pencil paint. I could go back and change the color, so I could change it to almost anything I want, to like orange, but that still does not look like a pencil. So that's not working for us, so I'm going to have to create my own texture here. Create a fill layer, and it doesn't matter where I put this as long as it's under my AO and curve. So I'm going to go ahead, click that icon. I don't want normal and I don't want height. Base color is always tricky with this, so I'm going to go to a orange color, just about right there seems to be the best. Metallic, maybe 1. Roughness, about 4.5 or so. So you can see right there, that's looking pretty good. Now that's too smooth. There's not enough noise there. So I'd like to change that. So I'm going to go ahead and again add a layer mask before I forget. Just pick that green. And I'm going to call this pencil color. And now what I want to do is I want to add some sort of noise to this, so it's not just so perfectly smooth. I'm going to go to my textures, and I just have some random purlin noise or some just other noises that I've pre-rendered. And so I can do a fill mask, take off metal, take off color, take off normal, take off height, and I'm going to drag one of these into the roughness, like that. You can see that it adds it. Now that's not the roughness I want. That's far too strong. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lower the intensity. So go up here. We're basically, it's applying this to the roughness, but we can only affect the opacity of what is selected. So we're in base color. I'm going to go to roughness and drag that down to a point that I like right there. So you can barely see it, but that slight variation is enough. And again, I'm going to apply that. I can actually kind of leave that applied to the metal and the paint and maybe even the lead. So when I do my color selection, I'll do the lead and I'll do this. And actually, I think that's good. That's all I want. So the last thing I need to do is the lead and the wood. So I'm going to go ahead and call this noise. Go to my materials and find some sort of wood material. Now you might not have all the materials I have, and so I'm going to just try some random ones. I'm going to try this high frequency wood. Let's see what that looks like. And again, it's going to apply it to the whole mesh. And you can see how long this is taking. Now, that's looking pretty good, but you can definitely see some seams. So what you can do is under the projection type, I could change this to triplanar, and it gets rid of the seams, but you also kind of get this fuzzy looking blend right there. so it's not exactly what I want. So this texture isn't working out as a fill for me. It's just not looking right. So I'm going to have to actually delete that and paint on my own. So I'm going to create a new layer. This layer has no information, and I'm going to go into orthographic view, click this icon, orthographic view, or just F6 will do it as well. 3 will give you a projection mode, and then you can actually drag this high frequency projection into the material mode, just like that. And so you can see that that loads up. Middle mouse button will zoom in and out of my model. Holding S, you'll get all of these different options right here. And so you can zoom it with S and right mouse button. You can rotate it with S and left. You can pan with S and middle. And you can snap with Shift as you do these different things. Okay, so I'm going to kind of zoom in like this. And this is going to be painting the color metal roughness, normal, and height. I only just want color metal roughness. And I'm going to paint this on. You can see that it's kind of going slow. So what you can do is, under texture settings, change this to 512. And now as you paint on, it looks a lot worse, but you can always scale it back up without loss of resolution. So you can see right there, it looked good where we painted, but then it kind of it drags right there, which is fine. Hitting 1 again will take me out of that, and then I can right mouse click, mask color selection, and just select that. Now here you can see white artifacts right there. So I'm just going to increase my tolerance a little bit, or you can decrease the hardness, and that will also help, but it's the tolerance mostly. There we go. So you just play around with that. And now if you actually want to see what that looked like at full resolution, you could click 2048, and it scales it back up for you. So that's actually looking pretty nice. If I zoom out to see what that looks like, that's already looking a lot like a pencil. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to label this wood texture. And now I'm going to create a graphite texture. For graphite, I don't need normal and I don't need height. Base color, I usually pick just a very dark gray. I never go black. Metallic, I find about 0.4 or so. And then having a relatively high roughness looks a lot like graphite. Maybe something more like 0.4. Let's try this. Right click, add mask. I'm going to go ahead and pick this thing. That's looking really good. You'll notice if I increase the tolerance too much, that will actually change this, because this is red and the graphite area is pink, and so it's too close to the same color. So I need to scale down the tolerance again until we get there. Okay. And you can see that looks pretty good. Now, this is pretty simplistic. I do want to add some detail to this, so I'm going to scale down to 512 again for speed. And I don't know why that changed colors. Let's try that again. Huh, interesting. So it shouldn't have done that. Let's go ahead and do that. Huh, that's funny. So I don't know what's going on with that, but it doesn't seem to be an issue, so I'm just going to ignore it for right now. If anyone does know, please feel free to leave a comment. But as you can see, as I scale up to 2048, it goes back to the correct color, so I'm not going to worry about that. Now I want to kind of add some tear to this pencil. This looks way, way too pristine, not very interesting. So what I can do is I can create another fill layer, like such. Get rid of the base color, get rid of metal roughness, and normal. I'm just going to do height, and I'm going to lower this to about 0.2. If you go to a brush, you can pick almost any random brush and just kind of see what happens. So I'm going to pick just this dirt 2. Okay, now I can't paint on this because it's a fill layer. So I'm going to create a mask, a black mask, and then I can paint on this using white or gray or any other. White is going to cut into it the most, black is going to basically erase. So if I take this and I just go like that, you can see kind of how that is affecting it. It's cutting in with a height of negative 0.2. If you increase this, you could see that you could get more. Now, I don't want it more because that doesn't look very realistic. And so, I don't like that dirt texture. I'm going to try and pick something else, maybe and you can just experiment and see what works for you. You have to click the mask before you start painting. I'm going to increase the size. That's not going to look very good in my opinion. Yep. Not what you want. There's a fur texture. Yeah, that's not what you're going to want. So I'm going to try this artistic. And I'm going to change it down from pure white to about 0.7. Like that. And you can just kind of add detail like that if you really want to. I'm not really getting the look I want. I'm trying to get kind of just almost like somebody has chewed on this pencil sort of look. So looking for something a little bit more soft. We have smooth noise. Let's see how that looks. Go to this fill layer. Let's increase the intensity so I can see. And you can see that's actually kind of interesting. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to kind of paint all over this. And then you can combine masks. So if I right click, add mask with color select, I can actually do this as well. Oh, okay, so you can't do that. So what you need to do is you need to create a folder. You need to put this fill layer in that folder. And then you can actually mask this folder with color selection like that. And so now everything inside that folder will just be that part of the pencil. I could have done that with the color as well. You can see that that's not what a pencil would ever look like. That kind of looks like almost stucco of sorts. But I'm going to go to this fill layer. I'm going to go ahead and decrease the opacity here. So got to go to height. Just like that. And you can see it's giving you a little bit more interesting texture like that, which is kind of cool. Now, as I was playing around with this, I actually kind of like that. You could blur the mask a little bit more to give it even softer. So if you right click, you could add filter and then select blur. And then depending on how much you want to blur, you could do that. So let's increase the strength so you can see it blurred. And you can see kind of how that affects it. Maybe just like that. And then decrease the opacity. And then you got the variation. Alright, so now I want to add some words to this pencil, such as number 2 and then the company's name or whatever. And so I'm going to go ahead and create a new fill level inside of this folder. Get rid of normal. I do want to keep everything else. Height, I'm going to put -2, 0.2. Color, I'm going to put down to a very dark black. Metallic, barely any. And then I'm going to actually kind of make it shiny. Like such. Maybe a 0.3. And we can play around with it, which is nice. I'm going to add a black fill mask. So it gets rid of everything. And then anything white I paint onto this will actually act as if I'm coloring it. So if you do like that. I'm going to go up to number 3, which is projection. And I need to project some stencils or decals that I made. So you can go ahead and go to the folder that you have any image that you want. And then just bring it into Substance Painter. And drag it into the textures right here. You do need to change this to either an alpha texture or environment. I want it to be a texture. I'm going to load it into the project. So as I save it, it'll keep this material with it. I'm going to hit import. So there it is. Going to slide that into the projection. Okay, let me see if that was right. Okay, I'm going to try to put that into the grayscale. There we go. Okay. So you just basically take it to the grayscale and it'll act as the color. Now you can see that I can zoom in like this. Okay, so I'm going to put a number 2 right there. I want a harder brush so there's not softness to it. Default hard looks perfect. And I'm going to just paint around that too, like such. There we go. Now I want it to say random art attack here on the side from the company name. So I can hit S and then shift left mouse and that'll move that. S middle mouse button, put this where I want it. So random art attack right there. Okay. And you can see, oh. You can see that I'm getting this. Now, this might be too thin of text. So we'll go ahead and look at that. So hit 1 again. Oh, I know why it got dark. Okay. So if you go to, I believe display settings, nope, viewer settings, when you drag a material into the screen, it actually changes the environmental map. So the environmental map right now is my decals. So I can go ahead and click something else such as this. Okay, you can kind of see how that's pretty good, except that random art attack is not lined up where I want it. So I'm going to undo that. Hit 3 to go into stencil mode again. I'm going to try and line that up a little bit better. Just like that. Okay, and there we go. Now if I want to turn the pencil to maybe the back side, trying to figure out where the back side is here. So there's 1, 2, 3, it is right there. Okay, I can go ahead and put that little logo of the storm cloud if I want to, just for fun. Try and get it where I want it. And there we go. Let's go ahead and zoom out, hit 1, hit F to get that right there. Now I like that. I don't really like the storm cloud right there, so I'm going to erase that. And there's my number 2 pencil, more or less. If this looks too sharp right there, there's a couple things you can do. First thing is I can right click this, add filter, go to blur, and I can actually kind of just take that a little bit to give it a softer little embedding. So like something like that. And that does look substantially better in my opinion. And I can change the color at any time. If I don't like this black, if I want it to be white, I could go to white. You could go to red, anything like that. And so I like I like what that looks like. If I wanted to kind of give some edge wear on that, you could just pick, I don't know, a dirt brush, go down to maybe 0.5 or so. Oh, actually you're going to have to go pure black. There we go. And then as I paint onto this, you can see that you can actually paint away some of the color like that. So black will erase. So if you want to do something like that, to just add a little bit more noise, so it's not so perfect. Most pencils I do look at do have pretty crisp, so maybe just something slightly like that. And there we go. Now the cool thing about this workflow is that really won't take you very much time, and now you have complete control over editing anything. If you don't like the color of the pencil, you can go back to layers, find pencil color, go ahead and click this, and you can change this pencil color to anything you want. Let's go ahead and change this to, I don't know, let's try this. Okay. Now that's not a different color, that's just a different lighting setup. If I want, say for example, a blue pencil, I could just change that. No hassle. If I want to go back, just undo that. If I want a white pencil, you could go like that. Now, Also, what's cool is you can kind of play around with the different textures. This is a pretty, more I'm looking at with different colors, this almost fill layer right here, the noise, is a little bit too strong, so I'm going to go to height. I'm going to lower that down so it's not even that strong, so you can barely see anything at all. And I'm going to actually create a very, very rough wood texture to this, as if this is very beaten up pencil. So I'm going to add another fill layer within this folder, and I'm going to go down to Materials, Distressed Wood. I don't know if you have this or not. I guess this might be one of those premium wood textures I purchased. So I'm going to drag that into here. It'll take a bit to load. And you can see that it kind of adds a cool little distressed noise to this. I'm going to actually take this out of this folder. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the color. Oh, that's why. I'm going to turn off the metal and the roughness. I'm just going to leave the height information, like such. I'm going to change it to triplanar so that it's projected like that. And you can see that it gives the pencil a very cool roughness. And so you can add different texture maps. Don't feel like you have to paint textures on. And it can lead to some very cool things. The scale is looking a little bit off, so I'm going to increase that to maybe, let's try 1. Let's just try something that looks good. And we can play around with that. Too much is way too much. So about 1.9. I'm liking that. And if there's any area that you don't like this line going all the way around it, I can go ahead and add a white mask and then just kind of paint black onto that to get rid of it, like that. And there you go. Let's go ahead and change that pencil color back to normal. So, pencil color. Trying to find that orange is going to be hard again. More or less. There's a good orange color. And there you go. That's pretty much it. I hope you like this workflow. When I first started off with Substance Painter, I really did go through and basically paint on the different textures. I'm finding that the material fill workflow works a lot better for me, where it's not, I have way more customization. You can't go back and edit the things that you paint. So for example, this wood right here, I can't go back and really change the color or anything like that without doing masking and a bunch of different things. But if I want different metal color or different eraser color or different lead color, if I wanted to do color pencils, I can do that in a matter of seconds now and get a lot of different pencils out. So let's go ahead and maybe just play around with a few of these, see what it looks like, try and get better lighting. That's a little bit better lighting in my opinion. You can change the opacity of the environment, change the rotation. Let's try and get something, just looking at it from a lot of different angles. And I quite like what that looks like. So, yep, that's a good looking pencil. Now I'm going to do one last thing, sorry. I'm going to try and, like I was talking about, change that color of that wood. So here's the wood texture right here. I'm going to add a fill layer right above that, take off everything but color, change the layer to color, base color, do either multiply or whatever, and then I can decrease that, do a selection by bitmap right there. Okay. So now as I change the color of this, it will actually change the tint of that wood. Oh, did I just do the graphite? I did, okay. So let's select that mask again, color selection, remove that, pick a color, that teal right there. And you can see it just turned it basically black. As I go up, I can change the tint of the wood like that. So that gives me a little bit more freedom of changing that material as well. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.